Wait, what about this part? Shh.
Welcome to TBR, a podcast where two besties read. I'm Addie.
And I'm Alex, and join us as we reread,
Review,
and reevaluate our favorite books over the years.
Shh, I'm reading.
This week on TBR, join us as we read Lockwood Co. Book 1, The Screaming Staircase, Part 2, Before. Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to our podcast, Two Besties Read. I'm Alex, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Addie. Hey, Addie, how's it going?
Hey, it's good. I'm over here enjoying some more tea, trying to be fitting again.
Oh.
Are you still on your Diet Coke, or are you refusing to drink tea again?
I refuse adamantly to drink tea because I think it tastes gross, but I am drinking a lovely Diet Coke.
How fitting. Previously, we had covered chapters 1 through 4, and now we're going to be covering chapters 5 through 8. And this section is titled Before. So, Alex, since this section kind of goes a little back in time and talks about different types of ghosts that Lucy had encountered before she met Lockwood and George, I want to ask you. Have you ever encountered any ghosts?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say I for sure have not seen a ghost, but whether or not I have encountered one is up in the air. I have two stories. One was when we were in college in our science building, hashtag STEM major. I was in the building late doing some homework because I was procrastinating and studying before a test. The fourth floor of the building you just wouldn't go to because it was just so creepy. The lights weren't on. There was like some ripped up furniture that no one talked about. And the bathroom door would always just be locked, even though no one would like go in there. So it just felt, It just felt like someone was watching you. So like we would dare each other to go up there and then run away. So there's that. There's that. You wouldn't really stay in the building past 10. A, because you need to sleep, and B, because it was just so creepy. And then a story from when we lived together in our lovely apartment complex.
I don't want to know this story.
I was sleeping on the couch, as one does, taking a little nap, and I was alone, from what I thought. And then, like, I kind of heard people come home and they go to their rooms. And they're like, Alex, stop sleeping on the couch and actually go to your room, kind of thing.
Listeners, this is a totally normal occurrence for Alex.
I am a chronic napper. I will agree. But I was sleeping on the couch. All of a sudden, there's just a really sharp poke. Listeners, I would like to personally apologize for the pterodactyl noise that just escaped Addie's mouth. She does that occasionally. Anyways, back to the podcast. Like between my shoulder blades. And I got up and I looked around the couch because I thought it was you. And like, I legitimately like sat there for a second and I was like, oh my God, if this is Addie again telling me to go to bed, that's fair. But I thought that you were pulling a little prank. So I just kind of sat there and I didn't hear anything. And I was like, oh, that's a little creepy. Usually like she says something. I got up and went around to the other side of the couch. I thought you were hiding on the other side, trying to spook me, and no one was there. Everyone was in their rooms, and it was dark, and I was terrified. So I ran to my room, and I locked the door, and was like, we're never going to talk about this again.
Yeah, because that's going to stop the ghost.
Yeah.
Closing your door.
Locked doors will keep it out. So yeah, those are my two ghostly experiences. Have you ever encountered any ghosts?
Okay, there's two stories. One, I didn't know it had occurred until I was older. The other one, I vividly remember. First one, the house that my family used to live in was owned by my great-grandparents. And I never had a problem with this house. I loved it. But my mom told me years later about how in my room she would hear the drawers opening and closing randomly.
That's terrifying.
And she always thought it was me and my sister. So she would rush into the room and look to see if we were just opening and closing our drawers, and we weren't.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it happened for years. And finally, my mom told my grandma, was like, hey, so the house is making really weird noises. It sounds like the drawers are opening and closing. And I kid you not, when my grandma died, we never had that problem again.
Oh my gosh, she told
Yeah, my mom and dad swear that my grandma went up to my great-grandpa, wherever the afterlife is, and was like, you better stop opening and closing those drawers.
It's like you're scaring people by rearranging. Knock it off.
Yeah, but I never knew that occurred until I was older. So I probably did encounter a ghost somewhat, but I don't remember it. The one I vividly remember is I was at lunch at school and I was eating a bag of Lay's potato chips. I'm pulling up a chip to my face, and it feels like right before the chip is to go into my mouth, someone is like holding my hand back, and like it feels like someone's clutching my arm, like they're holding it, trying to like pull my arm down. I really want this chip, so I'm really trying to push it in my mouth. And so then I'm like, fine, I'll go the other way. So I push and I yank and slam my hand down on the table. And it hurt so bad. It never happened again.
That ghost really wanted your chips.
Yeah, and I don't know, like,
jealous.
I don't know if it was like a ghost at school, because there were definitely ghosts at my high school. 100%. I don't know what I did to piss off this ghost. I don't know what it wanted. Clearly, it did not want me to have that chip. So...
Yeah, I feel like if I was a ghost, that would be me, just like snacking.
You'd be like, that's mine. My chip.
Yeah, give me some Oreos. I'll be drinking people's Diet Cokes. It'll be all over.
You just haunt the soda machine. Diet Coke.
Oh my God.
Get the Diet Coke. Or you're the
I'll do
person
it.
that makes it so the vending machine doesn't pop out with the Diet Coke, where it just sits and gets stuck. That's you.
I was blessed one time. I ordered 1 Diet Coke, got 3. It was like a miracle. I was so excited.
Okay, so clearly there's another ghost that was working in your favor.
Yes, that would be me. I would grant people Diet Cokes, and if they didn't order a Diet Coke, I would block it. Just be petty from the other side. Yeah.
You're like, it's mine. All right, now that we've talked about our ghost stories, let's get into the book. Let's talk about our favorite parts. But mainly, Alex, I want to hear your thoughts on this part, because it's a lot of backstory and a lot of world building in these chapters.
Yes, and I highlight my world building and foreshadowing and character development orange.
Oh.
So, like, I feel like I just highlighted these entire chapters, like, this is important.
My orange is relatable. It sounds bad. It's usually when Lucy's like, oh, she was so pretty, and I was just... there. I'm like, man, I feel you too, Lucy. I feel you.
God, I highlight that with trauma and sad. Come on, Lucy, you're a catch. Like you said, this is just a lot of world building. So chapter 5 pretty much is just about a little more about the problem, how ghosts have always been around, but 50 to 60 years ago, some switch happened. No one knows what's going on, but now these ghosts are a little more spooky, a little more haunting, and they seem to pop up all the time.
Something I really enjoyed about that beginning portion, I think we're probably thinking the same thing with like COVID times.
Yes.
People reacting to the problem, especially the first page. I mean, STEM majors. Women in STEM. But my passion is climate change and sustainability. So I was reading this portion where they're talking about, oh, well, ghosts have always been around and we just haven't noticed and they've just gotten worse over time, you know? So it felt very reminiscent of climate change, where people are like, oh, climate has always been changing. It's just, you know, we're noticing it more so now. And I'm like,
Are we?
You know? So I was reading this portion thinking to myself, wow, this is very similar to how people are responding to everything that's happening with the effects of climate change.
That's actually really insightful. I didn't think about it that way.
Well,
but totally accurate. Yeah, where it like creeps up on you.
Look at me go. I don't provide much to this podcast, but I'll provide some things. But I know we were both thinking like COVID times, especially. Something pops up and people don't know how to respond and the world almost completely shifts and stops.
Yeah. 100%.
In how they respond to it.
Yeah, and then there's some limited government involvement a little after the fact.
And little people like making a profit off of how things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
I could go on an entire different podcast. I will hold back.
Off the soapbox today.
Yeah, off my soapbox.
Yeah, I did think it was really interesting when we learn about Lucy's family. I thought it was really sad. It does really set up, I think, the found family trope, because she didn't really have a relationship with either of her parents besides what she could provide them as a monetary thing.
Well, she didn't have a relationship with her sisters either.
Yeah, and she has 7 sisters.
That's insane.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I have 3 siblings, and I'm like, that's enough.
You're like, that is too many.
All the birthdays and keeping track of everything. I don't know how you would do 7 kids total.
Okay, I'm great at my immediate family birthdays. Anyone past like uncles and aunts, I'm gone. I have no idea.
Yeah, I heavily rely on Facebook to notify of any birthdays.
But yeah, we get her backstory, and it's so sad. Specifically with her parents, not so much with the people she had worked with at her previous company. And this was one of my first sad parts that I highlighted in this book. It's
Oh, wait. Let me guess it.
Oh, yeah, go guess.
Is it the if he ever called me by the name, I don't recall it. He was a distant and arbitrary force. My only real emotion after he fell under the train was that we might not be done with him.
No, but that is sad too.
Oh, what part did you highlight?
Right after that, where she's saying he never came back. Even if he had, my mother said it wouldn't have caused us any problems. He'd only have haunted the local pub. That his ghost never came back. But even if he had, he wouldn't have even haunted them. It held a lot of weight for me that made it really sad. Oh.
That is really sad.
You're welcome. I will not be paying for your therapy.
Oh, good.
We're going to ask Jonathan Stroud to pay for our therapy.
Please.
Specifically when we get to book 3, but...
Oh, God. Book 3 is a whole roller coaster.
We're not there yet. Yeah.
We'll get there when we get there.
They say in here that a lot of people started really going towards religion when the problem had started.
That is a thing that you can track throughout history. I'm 90% sure. Please don't fact check me. But one of my teachers once, growing up in Catholic school, they were basically like, in bad times, people turn to religion. So like, if the economy's bad, people start to feel that pressure, and then they seek out religion to help them with that. And then when the economy like goes good again, or that stressor is gone, people just drop it. They just drop their religion and stop going. I thought that was really interesting. How they mentioned churches and mosques, like how people turn to religion for answers.
Oh, yeah. People like rushing to religion. It got me thinking, like, when things go bad, a lot of people switch to religion. But I'm kind of curious what all these churches and mosques and different religions were telling their congregation or their people. Were they telling them this was the end of days?
I bet they did. I bet they're like, this is the rapture. Everyone's gonna disappear.
Okay, kids, go enjoy the rapture. Fight them off.
Yeah. And also, if you could make a monetary donation, we wouldn't deny it.
So then Lucy, we learn, starts to work for this guy Jacobs, who, surprise, surprise, is an asshat. It's the worst.
Typical man. She starts working at 8 years old. Like, what grade are you in? 3rd grade?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. Too young.
You were battling chips in 3rd grade, and Lucy was...
Yeah, I was battling chips. Meanwhile, Lucy was battling actual ghosts. I was just losing.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I had any talent and they told me when I was that young, hi, you have to battle ghosts, I would be dead. I'm accepting my fate. All these different Twitter polls and quizzes of which agency are you part of? Let's be real here. I wouldn't even get that far. I would join, make it a week.
I don't think I'd be agency material. I would just be hanging out with the Night Watch kids.
Which also, in this chapter, she talks about how one of her sisters had talent but wasn't agency material. So I want to know, what qualifies as agency material?
Yeah, I don't know how you would gauge that exactly. Like, if you can see and feel certain things... or what you pick up from.
Yeah, like what level are... Because obviously Lucy is very, very good. But how not good was her sister? Really? Come on.
Yeah.
They couldn't have been a buddy-buddy system. Started their own little, Lucy and Co.
I don't know what sister she was with when they saw that ghost in the reeds. But, didn't even sound like her sister saw that or heard it.
No, and that was so creepy.
It was very Ophelia. Did you ever get that vibe where it's like... oh, I'm so sad. Let me just lay in the reeds and die.
You know what I was picturing, though? I was picturing the field from Deathly Hallows, I think it is, outside of Ron's house.
Yes! Same thing.
Yeah, where it's
that
like...
marshy, creepy, spooky.
Yeah, I was picturing that. And even just looking at that visual in my head, I'm like, oh, hell no. Hell no.
No, I get creeped out going by cornfields at night, because you're just like, there could be someone in there.
Oh. Hell no.
Ugh, if there was a ghost in the reeds, I would never set foot outdoors at night. I would keep to the curfew and not even peep outside.
Oh, I would be such a goody two-shoes in this world. They would be like, be in bed by 7. I'd be like, I'm in bed by 5.
I'll be there.
I'll be there. Don't worry. I'll be surrounded in this iron cage.
Yeah. Canonically, ghosts can't get under blankets, right? So my blanket would protect me.
Exactly. If you leave one leg outside of the blanket, it's obviously going to get chopped off in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Immediate ghost touch. But if you're under the blanket...
Whenever I got scared at night, I would wrap the blanket, around my head, so I'd look like a little cocoon, If I just show my face and not a single body part, they can't get me.
You just have, the hole that you can breathe through, but you're under the blanket.
And I'm, sweating like Niagara Falls under this blanket. And I'm like, we will suffer through. We're not going to die tonight.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the murderer's like, what the hell are they doing? So back to Jacobs. Lucy starts working there at 8 years old. She meets a lot of people, saves a bunch of lives. She earns her qualifications for her years 1 through 3 quickly, faster than any other agent, because she's just so sensitive, especially her listening skills. But yeah, it's established that Jacobs sucks. And like, he's
terrible.
Useless as an adult and scared.
Something I was thinking about while I was reading this is whenever I am in like a group or something and you're trying to find a good leader, you usually want someone that's actually been in your shoes and has gone through what you have gone through. And ideally, Jacobs would have been a good leader to have because he was an agent. He knows what they've been through. He's literally had the talent, battled all these ghosts. But it's kind of sad and frustrating that in his old age, he's just become senile and doesn't care and doesn't want to listen to them or believe them. And it made me want to just like throw the book at this character because I'm like, dude, you've been there. You understand how scared they are. You understand how scary it can be. Why are you not like having any empathy for these children? And I think it's 100% just his own selfishness that he is scared himself, which leads me to a question. Even though adults maybe don't have all their talent, do you think they can somewhat sense when there's ghosts around?
So I think they can, because there is a part in the book where it says, like every adult, his senses had long ago grown dulled since he couldn't detect ghosts easily. And that's why they rely on the children agents to be their eyes and ears. So I think that they can sense the ghosts are there, but the scary part is that since they're losing their talents, they can't see or hear them. So it's just like the dread of knowing that something scary is there, but not being able to actually act on it. And that's why they have to be the supervisor for the agents. But also, he should have been doing something instead of listening to Lucy scream about all the agents that were dying, and he just sat there smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating because she tells him, like, something doesn't feel right, something's wrong. And again, he should know because he's been an agent that you go on that gut instinct, but he just doesn't. And so you start to see which agents are great and which agents are subpar. And Jacobs is becoming extremely subpar. And we see that he isn't a good supervisor because any good supervisor who had talent as an agent would know that you should trust your gut.
Yeah. Especially since there are ghosts that change shape, and that just happened to be one of the ghosts there. You know, like, you can only rely on what you see so much, you know, but you have to follow your gut instinct. And instead, he blames her during the court hearing for what happened.
When I got to the end of this chapter and she's like, I'm packing up, I'm going to London, I was like, you go. Leave everyone behind. No one deserves you there. You deserve better, Lucy. And it sets it up so nicely for the found family trope, which I love.
Yes, a chef's kiss. I love that trope.
Oh, yes. Amazing.
Yeah, so Lucy leaves after being expected to go back and join Jacobs after all of her friends were murdered by a ghost. Go Lucy. We love a good strong woman moment.
We love strong independent women. Woo!
She just runs away to London.
And then we get the best ad ever.
Yes, I love the ad.
I want to be there when George and Lockwood wrote this ad. Preferably when they decided, oh yeah, she's got to be female.
Yeah, sensitive, all caps.
She's got to be well-dressed.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting, you know, Lockwood was behind the well-dressed. He's like, we can't have another George.
Also, I like that they say unsuccessful applicants will include time wasters, fraudsters, and persons with criminal records. I want to know the previous people they interviewed and that failed.
Yeah, there had to be at least like 2 people that they were like.
Yeah. So again, I want to be in the room when they constructed this ad. Was it just all George? Was it Lockwood? Was George like leaning over his shoulder?
I feel like it was mainly Lockwood, and George was just sitting in his deep armchair, just piping in like, no fraudsters.
Lockwood drew like hearts and flowers and little unicorns, and George is like, maybe get rid of that stuff.
Erase that. We're professional.
We're gonna attract the wrong people.
It's gonna be creepy.
It's gonna start to look suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. But then we get Portland Row.
Yes!
Portland Row,
our new home.
Our new home. We're currently here right now.
Oh yeah, we're sitting on the couch.
Yeah. Sitting on the couch, enjoying some tea and biscuits.
Cookies.
Biscuits.
And Diet Coke.
No! I refuse.
It's fine, I'll eat them. You can have your leaf water and your tasteless treats.
We don't get a lot of the inside of Portland Row. We get a lot of the outside at first. and that there's an iron line you have to stand behind after you ring the bell.
We meet George finally. He answers the door. Iconic. He asks Lucy if she's there with donuts.
And again, side note, I know we're not talking about the TV show that much, but just how wonderfully did they adapt this part?
Oh, they nailed the character.
They nailed George. Oh my gosh. Even just like the whole interaction of this whole interview that we're going to get into, it's just chef's kiss. Amazing. So Lucy meets George on the front steps, and he is just not getting that Lucy is one of the applicants, and he's not being the most welcoming person to Lucy. But to be fair, he's gone through a lot of applicants today, probably.
His mind is on one thing and one thing only. He wants a donut. And he's like disappointed that there's another candidate that didn't bring donuts.
Can relate.
Yeah.
Can relate.
Yeah, so it looks like when they got there was another applicant that had just gotten in, and he's like, oh, don't worry, she won't last long.
Oh, it's such a comedy scene. Well, hold on one second. Out the door.
Yeah, and he's like, second interview.
Yeah, hold on. Any minute now. 1 second. 5, 4, 3, 2.
And then he leads her in.
We meet Lockwood.
Lockwood.
Yes.
They're just so adorable.
And automatically, it's just the start of her descriptions of everyone else. She gives a scathing review.
Oh, yeah.
But for Lockwood, it is 5 golden stars.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder who the love interest will be.
Gee, I wonder. And sometimes Lucy's descriptions of other people are
They're so harsh. Her whole description of George was so mean.
Oh, it's so mean. My favorite part, which is gonna be later, is when she says that his face is uniquely slappable.
Oh, God. I mean, mean, but I feel like I've met those people where it's like, after interacting with you a bit,
I think while Lucy is very harsh on George in all her descriptions, and she's kind of mean to him, I totally get when there's that one person at work or in school that just pisses you off for no reason, and then every single thing they do, it's probably not actually annoying, but every single thing they do just ticks you off, and you just hate them.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we had a little chat before this podcast, catching up a little bit, and I was telling Addie about one of my coworkers who I feel this exact same situation where it's like 90% of the time, I can tolerate them. But there's 10% where I was like, anything you say, don't even look at me, and I'll get mad at you. Like, you need to just leave me alone. So I totally get how Lucy kind of butts heads with George, and she's like, God, he's so annoying.
And it sets up the first challenge Lucy is going to have in this book, that she is going to try and break this guy. They are going to be friends, whether she knows it or not, and she's going to try everything she can to get this guy on her side.
Yes, she's being so polite. And I think it's not until really she kind of stands up to him where he's like, okay, like she won't just roll over. She's going to give it right back to me. Now we can be friends.
Already you can tell when she comes to London, she has 10 times more confidence. And you can tell, especially when George and her interact in this first scene, you can tell her confidence has just skyrocketed. Because when she was talking to Jacobs, she's very unsure, going, oh, I think I heard something, I'm not sure. But then when George is pushing her buttons, it pushes her confidence so much. And she's like, fine, don't make fun of my talents. I'm leaving.
Yeah, it's a whole feisty conversation, which, again, not to bring up the TV show, incredible.
Amazing. Okay. Now we actually get to the actual interview portion, which is great. I like how each test that she has tests a different quality that they are looking for at their agency, at Lockwood Co. So the first test, they take a polka dot cloth off this ghost jar, and Lucy automatically is like, oh, I think it's this, and the face like totally like comes to life and scares her. And I love the skull, but we have to... Typical skull! Okay. We have to wait to talk about anything Skull until, like, the next book, because...
Yes.
I know you, and you know me.
Yes.
We could go on about how much we love the Skull for, like, an entire
our
new
favorite
podcast.
Character.
Yes. So our next podcast, Alex, is going to be Climate Change and the Skull.
Yes. It'll go well.
But this first test is 100% just a basic, are you brave? It's 100% a courage test. The second test, there's a teacup, and she holds it, and she doesn't feel anything. And she is being very honest of like, I'm really sorry. And I think it's the best test of all 3 of them. It's great.
I love it because you would expect, like, after you just saw this giant unveiled jar that scared the last applicant away, and you're like, oh god, what can this next test be? You get nothing. And, like, it's like, would you make something up? Would you be honest and be like, I don't feel anything. Like, sorry. So I just think it is a test of talent, but also a test of if you're gonna be honest, you know, to your fellow coworkers.
And I think going through school, and you probably have felt this as well, but especially in class, teachers don't really like when people bullshit their way through answers. Sometimes they'd rather you be honest of like, I'm really sorry, I don't know, but I can look into it. You know, they prefer honesty in that you might not know something over you bullshitting your way and be like, well, actually, you know?
Me on every presentation I give when they ask me a follow-up question, and I'm like,
you actually, blah, 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 Diet Coke, and they are called
me.
cookies. F. Fail.
A for effort.
No, that will not be effort. You say cookies instead of biscuits.
I would not pass.
Welcome to One Bestie Reads.
One person reads.
And the rest of the tests are talent-based tests. Is she able to effectively use her talent to understand what all these different sources were? But each having a different story is really good because she's being honest, and it really shows how talented she is, that she's not going, oh, this is the source. It clearly has something on it. She feels the whole story when she holds it.
Yeah, the echo for the object. I do have a question about this. Okay, so the really scary one, the watch of the murderer. And like Lucy says that she knows that the person didn't die while wearing it, but that there is death attached. So how do you get an echo onto an object? Is it just like the emotions that you have while you hold it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, but I do like that there's different emotions attached. Like the first one with the knife was actually someone related to Lockwood, and it's like, oh, peaceful emotions. He was a hunter. This is where he felt at peace. That's stuck on the knife. And then the really sad ribbon.
My heart.
That one was really sad. And then the really scary watch.
But nonetheless, these tests, I think, are perfectly curated to get the best employee that they want.
Yeah.
And I think that second test is my favorite because I 100% would prefer someone that's going to be honest with me, especially if you're going to a haunted house where it's literally a matter of life and death. I would rather have someone that's going to be honest with me than someone that's just bullshitting their way through. And it's like, well, it might be fine.
Yeah, I do like that it's kind of ironic that, like, the second test is like, oh, honesty. When Lucy straight up lied in her interview and she's like, yes. Grades 1 through 4.
And Lockwood knows. I mean, I will appreciate, I think Lockwood has a fantastic interview because he's so positive the whole time.
Yeah.
He's so nice and understanding. And I really appreciate that already when he's asking, like, oh, like, you don't have a resume from your previous employment, he doesn't even ask questions when she says she doesn't want to talk about it. He just is like, no worries. We can just move on.
Huge difference from all of the other interviews, because Lucy says, like, at every other prestigious agency, which is run by a supervisor or has supervisors, whereas Lockwood Co does not. That's the point in the interview where they're like, oh, you have your grades 1 through 4, and she's like, actually, and she tells the truth in those ones. And then they're like, get out.
Denied.
Yeah, so then she comes to Lockwood & Co., which is like the last option, and then she fibs about her grade 4 qualifiers. And then Lockwood's like, oh, so you don't have a resume either? Walking red flag. And Lucy's like, no. And he's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I also want to mention, we skipped over a little part, but it was just so funny, and I wrote, "Ope." They talk about the previous assistant they had, and how the previous assistant died.
No!
They're like,
yeah, they just brushed over
just
it.
so
They're like,
subtly.
yeah.
Just, what happened to him?
passed.
He moved on to another job? No, he passed. More like passed over.
He's dead.
What a nice way to say he kind of died. Also, how did they move on from this? Maybe he was a crime guy. Maybe he was why they wanted female.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're like, their entire ad was like, we need the opposite of Robin, a non-fraudster.
Yeah.
A lady that's well-dressed.
But after Lucy's done doing all these tests, I really appreciate that she knows her self-worth and she's just like, I've done everything I can. If they don't want me, screw them. You know, like, I did all I could do. Doesn't bother me. And then Lockwood's just like, of course you have the job.
We didn't get any concerned emotion from Lockwood until she took 2 cookies. And then he's like, oof, this might be a deal breaker. Not the fact that you are lying that he doesn't know about yet, or that she doesn't have a resume. It's that she took 2 cookies and broke the biscuit rule.
I mean, typical man. Only concerned about the food.
Also me.
Yeah, typical Alex.
Yeah. I do like how, like, I don't know, this chapter just has so much, like, oh, we're talking about death, we're talking about how important it is to have a job. And then at the end where they're talking about just 2 cookies, like the cookie rule, it's like, oh yes, these are children. Don't forget.
They may look like they're teenagers, but they're actually acting like they're 5.
We must share the cookies. Chapter 7. She's hired.
And now we get more description on what Portland Row looks like on the inside.
So much information.
And it's so cute. It feels so cozy and knick-knacky. I just love it. This is 100% how I design my apartment. It is all knickknacks and books and different artwork everywhere, or different memorabilia I've collected over the years. I don't even care if it goes together.
Yeah. See, I really want to be that person where it's like, this is the color of this room, this is the theme of this room, and it flows nicely. And then I'm like, oh, a little gummy bear lamp. Let me get that. It like throws off the vibe. But yeah, that's Portland Row. It's kind of just a mishmash.
It's a
What am I-
mishmatch.
It's a mishmash.
It's a mishmatch apartment.
It's a
Just so
mixture,
nice.
a mixture of all sorts of stuff. I really like that they call it home and headquarters, because that's what it is. Like, you have your living space, and then there's some iron filings, and you have your kitchen, and then there's the thinking cloth, and you have the part that's dedicated for work downstairs, but also the laundry machine. So it's where they live and do their stuff.
It's kind of sad, but you get a little bit of Lockwood absolutely shutting down his past.
The mystery!
Because he gives her the whole tour, and there's like, oh, this attic used to be my room. Here's my room. Here's George's room. You have your own bathroom, thank God, because then you don't have to share with George.
Yeah. Don't open George's room, because he does naked yoga. Casual.
What a true icon. I want to know if George is like looked into a nudist colony and is like, yeah, that'd be fun.
They need to set boundaries. I just like that George is so himself that, like, whatever. And then there's the mystery of how even Lockwood got the house. He's just a mystery man. He has this mystery backstory, mystery house, mystery door.
Just has so much behind him. And I think that's why I liked these novels so much, is because, yeah, they have ghosts. They're creepy and scary. I'm a mystery gal. We both love Scooby Doo.
Of course.
Obviously. I don't contain yourself over there, Alex.
Don't get me started.
We know you love Scooby Doo.
Our podcast will be Climate Change Skull and Scooby Doo.
We're just going to rewatch all the Scooby Doo movies, and we're just going to review them.
Oh, man.
We're going to change up our podcast. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
legitimately thought about creating a podcast where I would rewatch Scooby Doo and, like, talk about it. Non-joking. Like, this has crossed my mind.
Okay, but would you include a pup named Scooby Doo? Because that shit slaps.
Okay, one streaming platform has, like, all the different types of Scooby-Doo, even, like, the latest Mystery Incorporated one that was animated. But then there's the movies, and, like, I would just go through everything.
It's 0 flaws, 0 notes. Amazing.
Yeah, no notes, just ghosts.
Point being, I love mysteries, and I like that there's mysteries within each novel trying to figure out the story behind the ghost, but Lockwood himself is a mystery that through the course of these novels we're trying to figure out.
Okay, question. There is a part in this chapter where Lucy comes down and she pauses outside the door and George catches her. Would you, not necessarily in that moment because George would rat her out to Lockwood immediately, would you have opened the door at some point to see what it was? Because it didn't seem like the door was locked.
If I went to your house and you were like, hey, don't look behind that door, because I know you, I'd probably peek behind it. But if I'm at someone's house that I don't know and I just moved in somewhere and they were like, automatically, don't open that door. Oh, hell no. I would not open it. I know you would, because you're like a sneaky little, you like the tea. You're like that meme of Kermit just drinking the tea.
I like knowing things. I like the drama of knowing. I like knowing things. I mean, it could have totally, did you read that short story where it was like, don't go into the closet, and he tell his wife, don't go into the closet, don't go into the closet, and then one day he goes out and she opens the closet and it's like all the other wives' heads.
No, but that's terrifying.
It'd be like that.
I feel like I didn't want to know that information.
It's some short story that's a little spooky.
Clearly. Okay.
Read it in like 4th grade.
My question is that if you peeked in the door, Okay, we had started working at Lockwood Co. Okay, we didn't know Lockwood, we moved in. Okay, and you peeked behind the door. Okay, would you tell me what's inside? Would you be dying to tell me, or would you still keep it a secret? Because I believe you would still keep it a secret, but I feel like you'd secretly be dying to tell me.
Okay, well, if you didn't know I looked, if I just went and was sneaky on my own and looked, I would keep it to myself. If you knew I looked, I would probably give you a hint.
What would be your one hint to what's in the door?
Okay, qualifier. What time of day did I open the door?
I don't know.
Because if it's at nighttime, my answer's gonna change. Okay, so assuming I open the door at night to creep, I don't know. I think I would just say, like, blankets don't protect you.
Light.
There's a light at night.
Scooby Doo night light.
I don't know. I don't even know what hint I would give because I think I would just be so confused by what it was.
Okay, we gotta go back. They go walk into the kitchen. Okay, this is the best room, obviously, because it has the food.
The heart of the home.
The heart of the home, but it has the thinking cloth.
I love the idea of a thinking cloth.
I love it because I do it, but it's with sticky notes all over my counter. I have notes everywhere and little doodles, and I write songs, so I have, like, song lyrics everywhere. Like, it's all over the place.
I have to-do lists that I write at work every day, and I come home and I promptly put them in a pile and don't do anything on the list. So, like, that would be my thinking cloth. I do like that they're like, oh, it's for memos, it's for trains of thought.
A way of exchanging insults.
Yeah, and then George is like, it's for when we are not talking to each other.
And I like how Lucy's like, how often does that happen? Lockwood's like, oh, never. And George is like, you just wait, man. You just wait.
You'll see.
Also, we were talking last time about how Lockwood doesn't want to get to know the ghosts. He just wants to fight the ghosts and be done. And you even see it with how they treat who deals with the casebook, because George obviously wants to get into all the nitty-gritty details and everything that happened with the case and what the ghost was like and blah blah blah. Lockwood, he even like says at one point, it's done. I let George handle that because I don't want to do it.
I do like this is the first moment there's even a hint of a mention of type 3 ghosts, which, spoiler alert, plays an important role later in the books.
Later in the books, literally like all the next books. Oh, also the swinging dummies. I can't forget Joe and Esmeralda, because all I picture is Esmeralda from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, just swinging, swinging back and forth.
And like the little jingling.
Oh yeah,
she would swing
with the little tambourine.
Yeah.
I don't know who I picture Joe as.
I just picture like a hat. Like, man, Joe.
But Esmeralda, she's got the whole purple outfit and like the hair. She's gorgeous. She's the most pretty dummy you've ever seen.
You know what I picture for Joe? And maybe I'm just making this up because let me just look real quick.
What?
I think of Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka. Outfit that he's wearing.
I did not expect you to say that.
Oh my god.
So we have the guy from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Esmeralda.
Like an old suit. And I was like, I just picture like the brown hat and like sort of a suit.
Also, I have a question. I read something and he was talking about the different sources that they have behind their high security storage room. And he's talking about how, this one's from a pirate. 1700s probably. Again, this is the question we had last time. How long ago can these ghosts die and they be able to come back? Because I said last episode, but London is an old city. There's gotta be a shit ton of ghosts.
Because they've talked about, and in later books they get in this too, where it's like, oh, this was where a bomb dropped, and this is where the plague was, and this is where these Vikings were. So I think that when the problem started, new and old ghosts cropped up, where it was kind of like, anyone who wants to be a problem, as long as you have your body or some source, like, come on over.
Which, if there are remains of, like, cold cases that weren't ever at peace, does that mean that all these murders are going to get solved?
Ooh. I think cold cases, I think if the ghosts were not at rest enough. Like, they say a type 2 has to have a reason, right? So if I got murdered and was like, I want justice, I want my body to be found, I think you'd be able to come back. So any cold case, I think.
I would think so too.
But then in a later book, they say that a bunch of old ghosts pop up all of a sudden, like ghosts that shouldn't have even been there. So I think it's kind of a come one, come all. If you
are you not happy in the afterlife? Join now as we haunt everyone else. Let's make their life a living hell. Quite literally.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Is there a sign-up sheet?
Yeah, you can only come, you have to go in order of the sign up.
Alphabetical.
Number 1.
And Lucy just tears George a new one at this point.
Where she's like, yeah, it'd be so easy to, like, kick his butt.
It'd be so easy to just, everything about him is just,
She's so mean.
And then Lucy's like, well, it's clear who I liked. And we're like, really? We didn't know you liked Lockwood. Huh.
Yeah, make it a little more obvious you haven't said one bad thing about him. But I'm surprised that with George, who's, like, always seeking these answers and, like, into the research, why he didn't open the door.
I know Jonathan Stroud has done, like, a Ask Me Anything, and he kind of was giving a little bit of a hint of how George and Lockwood met, but nonetheless, I would actually want to know, like, how they met, because I feel like George would be super curious, but I'm really curious at what line George is like, nope, not gonna pass that. Not gonna ask questions. George might have part of his past that he doesn't want to share with Lockwood, so he's kind of going, respect, bro, and doesn't want to. he's just he's adhering to the bro code.
Yeah, the bro code. It's in the vaults.
But I don't know the bro code.
I don't know either. The bro code's a mystery. Another mystery.
Now we're on to chapter 8. And this is where Lucy works her first case with them. And I think it's so funny that Lockwood is just absolutely so nice to this little client.
I love this. Like, I love that their first interaction with a client mimics how they function as a team. So you have Lockwood, who's, like, really nice, charismatic, loves dealing with the people as the leader. He's kind of the face that the client interacts with. He gives all the big promises, the big smile, all that. And then George is, like, sitting off to the side writing all the notes because he likes the research. He keeps the notes. He's inquisitive that way, but he's not really asking questions. And then Lucy's just in the back as an observer and is listening in bold.
The client is obviously not believing his granddaughter, and it's very evident that he does not want to believe her.
Typical adults.
And Lockwood could be really mad about this. He could be really rude of like, well, if you just listen to your granddaughter, But that's exactly what he would sound like.
Oh, God.
But Lockwood is so nice about it. He's a pro at dealing with difficult people.
Yes, he's got those customer service skills.
He is swerving all the rude comments he could make. And he's just very nicely being like, oh, well, what does she say she's seen? He's almost trying to put himself on the side of the client and get as much information as possible.
Well, I like it's like lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So he's like, so your young granddaughter sees someone standing there and it's cold in the garage and the cats avoid it and there's lots of spiders.
Smells like a ghost,
Yeah, maybe we'll take a look.
Oh yeah, spiders. They love ghosts. I'm like, so I don't want to think about the spider I killed with a 2x4 the other day.
Yeah, so the last 2 apartments I've lived in were haunted.
I'm like, maybe I should get a cat. I should really just get a cat so that I know.
Do you want to know? Do you want your cat to stare at a corner of the wall and be like,
That might be worse. Never mind, I don't want a cat.
I'll live in fear. Yeah.
I'm just gonna live in blissful ignorance over here. My apartment's fine.
Yeah. Let me just vacuum up all the spiders and just ignore it. Turn up the heat, etc.
So they end up going to this guy's garage to figure out what this issue is. And George, of course, is like, you didn't give me time to research and blah, 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 as he always does. I say blah, blah, blah. George has a point.
Not to mimic the current case that they're on with Annabelle Ward, but Lockwood rushes into it, and George is resentful of the fact there was not enough time to do proper research.
It is interesting, though, that there's this debate between George and Lockwood. I personally learn from experience. So I learn when I'm with someone and they're actually walking me through all the steps. But some people are really good when they're reading something. Like they're more of a visual learner. Like they see something, they read it. And while I agree with George on the importance of doing your research and reading before a case, I do understand and agree with Lockwood's perspective that there's no substitute for exploring and getting out there to see what it actually is.
Yeah, research only gets you so far. But also, as we see in later cases, research really is important. because there's a lot of documented stuff that helps him out. So it does go hand in hand. But yeah, research only gets you so far. You really have to go and explore.
George has a whole spiel where he's like, well, actually, it's probably because they dug up blah, 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 blah. They think it's a body that was below the garage, and it just got disturbed. Lucy is the smart one, and I love that she's like, excuse me, I don't agree with you. And Lockwood and George do the whole, what?
Yes, she stands up for herself.
And she's so smart. And the whole time George was talking about what he thought it was, I was like, yeah, that's totally it. And then Lucy gave her explanation. I was like, oh, George, sorry. I'm dipping out on you.
Yeah.
I'm going with my girl Lucy.
Gonna jump ship to the other conclusion.
Yeah. And it ended up being that it was one of the motor parts. I think someone had like crashed on a motorbike or something, and that was their spirit.
I like that Lucy not only stands up for herself, but she also is so sassy about it. She's like, oh, you didn't hear what the ghost said? Let me spell it out for you.
Oh, you didn't? You didn't hear it? Let me explain it to you, George.
Yeah, she's mansplaining to George what the ghost is.
Well, I mean, he was mansplaining to her earlier.
That's
what was
true.
it?
She's giving it right back.
Oh, it was the spiders. He's like, well, you know about the spiders, right? And she's like, yeah,
God.
I know about the spiders. He's like, okay, good, just checking. So I like how she's like, well, you didn't hear it, did you? And he's like, no, I didn't. She's like, thought so.
Interesting.
Lucy, Sassmaster. We stand.
Yeah, and she's right, so...
And then we get this amazing conversation between Lockwood and Lucy, and I have a thought. It's gotta be so awkward living with people you don't know and that you work with them. Because I just started a job like a year or two ago, and to live with my coworkers? Excuse me, that would be terrible.
Yeah, it's awkward enough living with new roommates, like in college when you don't really know them, and you're like, oh, okay, like... Is it cool to leave your dishes in the sink? What's the etiquette here? Am I allowed to walk around in my sports bra, or is that weird? You know, like that. But imagine your coworkers too. And then also it's someone of the opposite sex. So you're like, at what point is it acceptable to walk around in your pajamas, or are you supposed to keep everything professional?
It's actually kind of sad because Lockwood obviously doesn't want to let anyone in. He's very mysterious and he doesn't want to reveal his past. And I kind of am almost mad at him because if he doesn't want people to know his past, he shouldn't have invited them into his home.
Yeah, it is a little weird to be like, this is my house. You will live here and we will be a family. But don't go in that room. Don't ask about my parents.
Don't go in the room. You are cut off.
I do love this comment. Oh my God.
It's a weird juxtaposition where obviously Lockwood craves connection, but he doesn't want to let people in enough that are in that connection, if that makes sense.
Yeah. He wants it on his terms.
Yeah, he wants it to be on his terms. He doesn't want to have to go through all that pain that he's gone through, which we figure out later, which is understandable. I can't relate because I obviously have not gone through something that Lockwood has gone through, but I kind of am almost like, bro, like, it's not going to work out that way. You're going to have to let these people in at some point.
Yeah, secrets always have a way of coming out, which, since the interview, we've had this whole knife hanging over your head about when are they going to find out that Lucy lied during her interview, and she doesn't actually have a fourth-year qualification, which is really important according to, like, DPRAC and the whole agency rule. You have to have qualified people. It's like someone driving without a driver's license, which is illegal. So I love that in the end of this chapter, they just air it out. I'm so glad that it's just like, by the way, I did follow up and you're a liar.
And Lucy says, actually, your agency isn't that prestigious.
Yeah. And he didn't even bring it up until she called him a liar about his agency being prestigious.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, if we're talking about liars, like...
And she's like, all right, Tony.
Big A.
Yeah, I want to know who called him Big A.
Maybe that's what Robin did. Yeah, that first assistant did. And they're like, he's got to go. This ends here.
That's how he passed over.
Yeah. It wasn't actually a ghost. It was Lockwood.
It was Lockwood taking him out.
Yeah.
And I will exclusively only be calling him Lockwood.
Yeah.
But I do prefer the British way to say Anthony over Anthony.
Anthony just sounds so fancy. Anthony is like the boy next door. Anthony. But Anthony is refined. Anthony is Diet Coke. Anthony is a glass of water.
Anthony is biscuits. Anthony is cookies.
No.
You don't agree? There is one part before this, though, that Lockwood is reading his magazines and he's talking about how all these rich people have parties, even though there's ghosts outside. And I think you wrote this in your notes, too. COVID. Oh my gosh. The amount of people that were still hosting parties.
Yep. Everyone's like, it's Christmas. You have to have a Christmas party. It's like, do you?
We're introverted, Alex.
That's true. I probably wouldn't have gone anyway. Not gonna lie, the COVID restrictions didn't change anything about my life. It's like, you're telling me I'm not supposed to see people and I need to stay home? Say less.
I'll just keep living my dream.
I've been prepping for this my whole life.
In the chapter, and this part actually ends on a really sweet note.
Okay, I love that it ends with, there's no hope about it with our combined talents, what can possibly go wrong? That totally mirrors how the first section ended. It was, in 6 months, when have I ever let you down? And then they fall. So it's like, I just love the writing style where it's Lockwood at the end posing a question, being like, what could go wrong? When have I let you down?
And we know what went wrong. They burned down a house.
Yeah. We know exactly what went wrong.
Typical children. They're like, what could go wrong? And everything goes wrong.
Yeah, you don't tempt the universe by saying what could go wrong. That's Murphy's Law.
And now we'll move on to the what if portion of our podcast. The part where Alex comes up with really good what if questions, and I sit there and go, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Well, this time Addie came up with some questions as well.
I've been trying, okay?
Yeah.
I've been channeling my inner Alex.
Yeah, just questioning everything. So our first question is, if the old mill incident hadn't occurred, do you think Lucy would have had the courage to move to London, or do you think she would have stayed in her small hometown with Jacob's agency?
I think one way or another she would have made her way to London. Jacobs wasn't a good leader, period, and I think as you grow up, naturally, you become a little more rebellious to the rules. And I think over time, more stuff would have gone wrong, similar to that incident, that she would have wanted to leave.
I agree. I think that Lucy would have moved on to greater and larger things and joined a more prestigious agency where her talents could really be utilized.
I agree.
If Lucy had had her fourth-year qualifications, do you think she would have chosen Lockwood Co., or do you think she would have gone with a more prestigious agency?
I think she would have gotten into another prestigious agency. And I think she would have stayed there for a little bit. But I don't think she would have truly loved it.
I think when Lockwood said that he was a supervisor-less agency, that kind of threw her for a little bit, because that's not the norm at all, if it's just run by children and not by a supervisor. But she does end up loving that that's how Lockwood Co. is set up. But I think if she had started somewhere with like Fitz or Routwell, I think since their supervisors are more capable than Jacobs was, that she would have stayed.
I think so too. I think kind of when it was too late, she would figure out about Lockwood Co. and be like, oh man, I should have joined them. But I think for the most part, she probably would have stayed at wherever she was at, because she wouldn't know that the grass was a little bit greener on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it would have been a Holly situation where she started at one of those prestigious agencies, something went wrong again, and then she found other...
Let's be honest. Lucy's a sass master. She would have gotten so annoyed with shitty people and just dipped out.
She's good enough. They would have kept her the 6 months like they did George.
Oh, yeah.
What if Lucy, Lockwood, and George didn't have to live in Portland Road together?
What do you think?
I think it would have changed the dynamic 100%. Like, it wouldn't be the same. Like, they said that they break into cases or they get these weird trains of thought and solve cases at 4 a.m. over grilled toasties. You wouldn't have that dynamic with your coworkers. And I think it'd be more professional instead of more relying on each other as friends.
Yeah, and it makes me cry thinking of Lockwood just alone in that house. Picturing him sitting on the couch with a cup of tea looking at the fire like, all by myself.
Oh my god. That is the song for him. All the sad romance ones.
Oh my gosh. The whole reason it's good that they live together is because they can pick up on each other's train of thoughts. And I think we know from living together, you wake up and you're like, hey, let's just do this. Or you have a random thought, as I call a goldfish moment, where you're like, oh, yeah, this thing. It just pops up randomly in your head. All those moments would just go to waste. So I don't think they would be as successful as an agency. So it's kind of smart that they all live together.
Yeah. Can you really trust someone if you don't know what their pajamas look like?
Can you really trust someone if you haven't seen them doing yoga naked in their room?
We wouldn't know.
I don't know how many times that happened to Lockwood. Was it just once?
It had to be like twice. It's got to be twice. Because he throws...
Do you think Lockwood in his head was like, I might try that?
I think he just blurted out, like blacked out that memory. It was so traumatic.
I bet you George like read an article about the benefits of naked yoga and was like, this is what I need to do.
He was doing research. Yeah.
Now to the favorite moment guessing game.
Ta-da!
Oh wait, I have mine. Do you have yours?
Okay, I do know what mine is. I don't know yours. I'm a little nervous.
If you know me, truly, you know.
Is yours the part about the assistant that passed on?
No, but that is Hey, I got it wrong last week, so you gonna get it wrong this week. My favorite part, there's a little paragraph and I put a heart.
Aww.
Basically, she's like apologizing because she lied about her 4th grade, and he's like, it doesn't matter. Whatever happened then is in the past. What counts now is the future. I already know you're good enough for that. And I personally love that because I have never been the straight A student or the person that shines the brightest. And for someone to just see you and be like, that doesn't matter. I know you're good enough. I believe in you without even knowing you all that much. That's just so sweet, and it's just the best feeling. So that's my favorite part.
Aww. That is a good part.
Do you know what your favorite part is?
Yep.
I want to say it's when Lucy opens the door and sees George in their first interaction. Because I know you love George.
I do. It's close. It's during the interview when Lucy's about to leave, and it's the whole, feisty. She's like, step over here, and I'll show you. And he's like, well, maybe I will. Just like, I don't see you moving. Well, it's a really deep-setted couch. It might take me a while. I love that part. I just think
I know
so
you
funny.
love George. Let's be real.
I do. I would want George to be my friend.
Would you want him to be your roommate? Would you? I'm gonna
No.
keep bringing up the naked yoga, but just
we would.
it comes out of left field. But would you do naked yoga with this man?
No, I don't think so. I'm not a yoga person, but we would quickly set boundaries of knocking on doors. That's it.
I feel like
Yeah.
when we lived together, I would just walk in your room regardless, and half the time,
Yeah.
you're wrapped
Do you
up.
remember the time? I walked into your room and you were taking a bath and drinking a beer, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I forgot about that. I didn't see anything because the shower curtain was closed. But it's like maybe knocking is ideal.
But then I obviously didn't learn because I would just walk in your room, and half the time, I'll be honest, 75% of the time, you were napping on your bed.
Yeah, clothed, no naked yoga. We're lucky.
So next time, we will be covering the next part titled The Necklace.
I wonder what it's about.
This covers chapters 9 through 16.
Ooh.
So join us in 2 weeks as we cover The Necklace.
As always, if you have any comments or questions, if you want to send us your favorite parts of this section, feel free to contact us at Instagram at 2bestiesread, Twitter at 2bestiesread, and Gmail at 2bestiesread@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Let us know your thoughts to the what if questions. What was your favorite part? Would you also join George doing naked yoga?
Might judge you on that one.
All right. So that's, I guess, how we're going to end it again. We'll come up with an ending.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, we didn't think about that.
No, we'll get better at it. It's fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay, I'm going to end it there.
Thanks for listening to TBR.
Be sure to follow us on the socials at 2bestiesread.
Got any suggestions for the other series we should look at? Email us at 2bestiesread@gmail.com.
Join us next week as we read